Commander Yethis stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the tactical display with growing dread. The red dots on the screen moved slowly but surely toward the blue circle that represented Kethany Prime. Each red dot was a Dracorath, and there were 12 of them, 12 dragons of the void, coming to destroy a world of 2 million peaceful farmers. Yethis was a Kelleran, a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms. He had served in the Galactic Compact Fleet for 30 years. He had seen battles and survived wars, but he had never faced the Dracorath before, and he knew that today would likely be his last. The Dracorath were not like other threats. They were not ships or armies or weapons. They were living creatures, born in the hearts of dying stars and raised in the cold darkness between galaxies. Each one measured 300 meters from the tip of its snout to the end of its tail. Their scales were harder than any metal known to science. Their breath could melt through starship hulls. They could survive in the vacuum of space as easily as a fish swims through water for 6,000 years. The Dracorath had conquered and destroyed. 17 star systems had fallen to their hunger. Entire species had been wiped from existence. The greatest fleets of the galaxy had thrown themselves against these monsters and been reduced to floating debris. And now they were coming for Kethany Prime. Yethis looked at his own fleet on the display. 15 ships, the best the Compact could spare on short notice. Against a single Dracorath, they might have lasted an hour. Against 12, they would be gone in minutes, but they would fight anyway. That was their duty. The communications officer spoke up. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from an approaching vessel." On screen, Yethis said. The image showed a human female with dark hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple uniform with the name Vasquez stitched on the chest. Behind her, Yethis could see a small bridge with perhaps a dozen crew members. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the research vessel Persistence," the human said. "We picked up your distress signal. What is your situation?" Yethis felt a strange mix of hope and despair. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as stubborn and clever, but they were also relatively new to space travel. Their ships were small, and their weapons were weak by galactic standards. What could one human research vessel do against the Dracorath? "Captain Vasquez, I appreciate your response, but you need to leave this system immediately," Yethis said. "The Dracorath are coming. 12 of them. There is nothing you can do here except die." Vasquez did not seem surprised by this news. Her expression remained calm and focused. "The Dracorath," she repeated. "Those are the big dragon creatures, yes? The ones that destroyed the Morthian Empire." "The same. They have never been defeated in battle. Their scales can withstand any weapon we possess. Please, Captain, save your crew while you still can." On the screen, Vasquez turned and spoke quietly to someone off camera. Then she looked back at Yethis. "How many people are on that planet?" 2 million. Farmers, mostly. Families. Children. Yethis felt his voice catch. "We are trying to evacuate, but there is not enough time. The transport ships cannot move fast enough." "How long until the Dracorath arrive?" Yethis checked his display. 14 hours at their current speed. Vasquez nodded slowly. She seemed to be thinking very hard about something. The humans around her had stopped their work and were watching her, waiting. "Commander," she finally said, "what do you know about how these creatures live? Do they breathe? Do they eat? Do they sleep?" Yethis was confused by the questions. "They breathe, yes. They absorb oxygen through specialized organs in their respiratory system. They consume the energy of stars and the matter of planets." "Why do you ask these things?" "Just gathering information." Vasquez smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just made a very difficult decision. "Commander, my ship will be joining your defensive line." "Captain, Please listen to me. The persistence is only 200 meters long. You have no heavy weapons. The Dracarith will destroy you without even noticing. Maybe, Vasquez said. But we have 14 hours, and my people are very good at solving problems. We are going to need every piece of data you have on Dracarith biology. Send us everything. Autopsy reports, scientific studies, sensor readings, rumors, legends, anything at all. Yethis stared at the human on his screen. He had heard stories about this species, about their strange refusal to accept impossible odds. He had thought those stories were exaggerations. Now he was not so sure. Captain Vasquez, what exactly are you planning to do? The human woman leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to burn with something that Yethis could not name. It was not anger or fear or madness. It was something older and more dangerous. Commander, my species spent 100,000 years hunting things bigger than ourselves. We killed mammoths with pointed sticks. We brought down whales from wooden boats. We drove the greatest predators on our planet to extinction using nothing but patience and cleverness. She paused. A dragon is just a bigger problem. Send me that data. Yethis did not know what mammoths or whales were, but he understood the look in the human's eyes. It was the look of a predator. He began transmitting everything the Compact knew about the Dracarith. The Persistence was never meant for combat. It was a research vessel, built for studying strange phenomena in distant corners of the galaxy. Its hull was thin. Its weapons were small. Its shields could barely stop a meteorite, but its crew were human, and humans had never let poor equipment stop them before. Captain Elena Vasquez gathered her people in the main cargo bay. There were 43 of them in total, a mix of scientists, engineers, pilots, and technicians. They stood in a rough circle around her, their faces showing various mixtures of fear, confusion, and determination. You have all seen the tactical data, Elena said. 12 Dracarith are coming to destroy a planet full of innocent people. The Compact fleet will try to stop them, but they will fail. Those creatures have never lost a battle. She paused and looked around the room. These were her people. She had served with most of them for years. She knew their names, their families, their hopes and dreams. She was about to ask them to risk everything. I am not going to order anyone to stay, she continued. If you want to take a shuttle and leave, I will not stop you. But I am staying, and I am going to find a way to kill at least one of those monsters. Who is with me? No one moved toward the shuttle bay. A few people exchanged glances, but no one left. Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's chief medical officer, raised her hand. Captain, what is the plan exactly? How do you fight something that can survive nuclear weapons? Elena smiled. She had been waiting for this question. We don't fight it from the outside. We fight it from the inside. A murmur went through the crowd. Elena held up her hand for silence and continued. I have been studying the data that Commander Yethis sent us. The Dracarith are incredibly tough on the outside, but inside, they are still biological creatures. They have organs. They have nerves. They have weaknesses. We just need to get inside to exploit them. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb pushed his way to the front of the group. He was a large man with big hands and a brain that could solve any mechanical problem. You want to fly our ship into one of those things? Into its mouth? Yes. The Dracarith breathe. They open their jaws to take in oxygen when they exert themselves. If we time it right, we can fly directly into its respiratory system before it knows what is happening. And then what? Marcus asked. We just cruise around its lungs until it coughs us up? No. Then we deploy teams to cause damage from within. I need your people to start building equipment. Thermal lances, modified for cutting biological tissue. Mining charges reconfigured for maximum soft target damage. Breathing apparatus that can function in an atmosphere of alien blood and stomach acid. The cargo bay fell silent as people processed what she was suggesting. They were going to hunt a dragon from the inside. Lieutenant David Park, the ship's tactical officer, was the first to speak. "Captain, this is insane." "You know that, right?" "Completely insane," Elena agreed. "But do you have a better idea?" David thought about it. He looked at the tactical data on his personal display, scrolling through the records of previous battles against the Dracorath. Ships destroyed. Fleets scattered. Worlds burned. In 6,000 years, no one had ever successfully killed one of these creatures in combat. "No," he finally admitted. "I do not have a better idea." "Then let us get to work. We have 13 hours. The crew scattered to their tasks. Engineers pulled out tools and began welding equipment together. Scientists analyzed the biological data, searching for weak points in the Dracorath anatomy. Pilots ran simulations, trying to calculate the exact trajectory needed to fly through a monster's mouth without being crushed by teeth the size of buildings. Elena moved through the ship, checking on each team, answering questions, and solving problems. She did not rest. She did not eat. There was no time. Dr. Chun caught up with her near the medical bay. "Elena, a word?" They stepped inside, and Chun closed the door. "I have been looking at the atmospheric data from inside a Dracorath," the doctor said. "It is not good. High acid content, extreme temperatures, almost no oxygen. Our standard suits will not last more than 30 minutes in there." "Can you modify them? I can try." "But Elena, even if we survive the environment, we will be fighting blind. There are no maps of a Dracorath interior. No one has ever explored one." Elena nodded. She had already thought about this problem. "We do the best we can. We keep teams in communication. If someone finds something important, they tell everyone else. We learn as we go." Chun studied her captain's face. They had known each other for 10 years. She had never seen Elena look so focused, so determined, so alive. "You actually think we can do this, don't you?" "I think we have to try," Elena said. 2 million people are going to die if we do not. Children are going to die. I cannot live with that." "Can you?" Chun took a deep breath. Then she turned back to her medical equipment. "I will have the modified suits ready in 6 hours." "Make it 5, Elena said, and walked out the door. The Dracorath called Koravax the Eternal was the largest and oldest of his kind. He had burned his first world when human ancestors were still living in trees. He had watched stars be born and die. He had fought armies and fleets and entire civilizations, and he had defeated them all. Now he led his brood toward another small world full of soft creatures. It would be an easy hunt. It always was. His great eyes, each one larger than a human spacecraft, spotted the small fleet waiting near the planet. 15 warships of the Galactic Compact, arranged in a defensive formation. Koravax felt something like amusement. These insects thought they could stop him. They would learn their mistake soon enough. Then he noticed a tiny vessel moving toward him, separating from the fleet. It was almost too small to see, barely a speck against a backdrop of stars. But it was heading directly toward him, accelerating steadily. Curiosity stirred in Koravax's ancient mind. In 6,000 years, he had never seen a ship fly toward him willingly. They always ran. They always tried to escape. This one was attacking. Aboard the Persistence, Elena sat in the captain's chair and watched the monster grow larger on her view screen. It was bigger than any creature she had ever imagined. Its scales were black and red, like cooling lava. Its wings stretched wide enough to embrace a moon. Its eyes glowed with an inner fire that had burned for millennia. It was the most terrifying thing she had ever seen, and it was opening its mouth. "Now," she said quietly. Lieutenant Park pushed the engines to full power. The persistent shot forward like a bullet, diving toward the creature's open jaws. The teeth flashed past them, each one a mountain of bone and enamel. The throat opened before him like a tunnel into darkness. Then they were inside. The ship shook violently as it scraped against the walls of the creature's respiratory tract. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. But they were alive, and they were moving deeper into the monster. "All teams deploy," Elena commanded. Throughout the ship, airlocks opened and humans in modified suits dropped into the alien darkness. 30 of them in total, divided into 6 teams of 5. They carried thermal lances, mining charges, communication equipment, and more courage than any reasonable person should possess. Dr. Chen led Team 1 into what seemed to be a major blood vessel. The walls pulsed around them with each beat of the creature's massive hearts. The heat was intense, even through their suits. The air was thick with particles that their equipment struggled to filter. "Keep moving," Chen ordered. "We need to find the nerve cluster that connects to the brain." Marcus Webb commanded Team 3, pushing through tissue and membrane toward the creature's primary oxygen absorption organs. They would plant charges there, disrupt the Dracoth's ability to breathe. Without oxygen, even an immortal dragon would weaken. Outside, Karavax felt the first hint of discomfort. Something was wrong inside him. Something was moving, scratching, burning. He had never felt anything like this before. He roared, and the sound echoed across the void. The compact fleet scattered in terror. But the sound also traveled inward, nearly deafening the human teams with its power. Elena kept the persistence. Stable in the creature's secondary stomach, using the ship as a command center. She watched the team positions on her display, tracked their progress through the fading signals of their communicators. Team 2 report. Static. Then a voice, barely audible. "We found something big. Looks like a nerve junction. Planting charges now." Team 5 status, more static. Then silence. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. Team 5 was gone. 5 people, dead inside a monster, and she had sent them there. She opened her eyes. There was no time for grief. Not yet. "All teams, continue mission. We need to reach the primary nerve cluster. We need to shut this thing down." Marcus and his team had planted their charges in the respiratory system. Now they pushed deeper, following the path that the data suggested would lead to the creature's central nervous system. The going was slow. The tissue was thick, and their equipment was wearing down quickly. Then they found it. The nerve cluster was enormous, a twisted ball of biological cables, thicker than tree trunks. Electrical impulses flickered through it constantly, carrying commands from brain to body and back again. This was the key to the creature's movement, its coordination, its ability to fight. "Webb to Captain," Marcus said into his communicator. "We have reached the target. Beginning assembly of the MP device." Aboard the Persistence, Elena allowed herself a small smile. The electromagnetic pulse generator was their secret weapon. It had been designed to disable enemy electronics in ship-to-ship combat, but it could also disrupt biological electrical systems, at least in theory. No one had ever tested it on a Dracoth before. "All teams fall back to the ship," Elena ordered. "We are going to light this candle." But Korvax was not finished. The ancient dragon had finally realized that something was truly wrong. He began to thrash, trying to dislodge whatever was hurting him. The movement threw the human teams against walls and obstacles. More signals went dark. Elena watched her display as the team indicators blinked out one by one. Team 2, gone. Team 4, gone. Team 6, not responding. Only Team 1 and Team 3 remained, and they were running out of time. Dr. Chun crawled through the darkness with 2 of her team members still alive behind her. The other 2 had been crushed when the creature thrashed. She tried not to think about them. She tried not to think about anything except reaching the ship. Her communicator crackled. "Chun, where are you?" "5 minutes from the ship," she replied, her voice hoarse. "Maybe less if this thing stops moving. We need you here. Webb's team is setting up the EMP, but they need help." Chun looked back at her remaining people. Biologist James Foster and technician Anna Rodriguez. Both were injured. Both were exhausted. But both nodded when they saw her looking. "We are on our way." When they reached the Persistence, the ship was in bad shape. The hull had been damaged by the creature's internal movements. Lights flickered unpredictably. Several sections had lost atmosphere entirely. But Marcus Webb was still alive, still working, still determined to finish the job. The EMP device sat in the center of the cargo bay, a crude assembly of parts that had never been designed to work together. Webb had built it in hours using equipment meant for completely different purposes. It looked like it might fall apart at any moment. "It will work," Webb said, seeing the doubt on Chun's face. "I think." Elena came down from the bridge, her uniform torn and her face covered in sweat and grime. She looked at the device, looked at her remaining crew, looked at the walls that pulsed with the heartbeat of the monster around them. "How do we trigger it?" she asked. "We need to get it to the nerve cluster," Webb explained. "Then set the timer and run. The pulse will travel through the creature's nervous system and shut down everything. Brain function, motor control, organ operation, everything. And us?" Webb hesitated. "The pulse might affect our equipment, our suits, maybe our ship systems. I cannot guarantee we will be able to escape before the creature dies and we suffocate." Elena nodded. She had expected this answer. She had known from the beginning that this mission might be one way. She looked around at her people. 11 humans remained alive from the 30 who had gone in. They were tired and wounded and scared. But they were still here. They had not given up. Volunteers to place the device? She asked. Every hand went up. Elena chose Webb and Foster. They were the strongest, the fastest, the most likely to make it back. She helped them load the EMP onto a small transport cart. She checked their suits one more time. She told them how proud she was of them. Then she watched them disappear into the darkness, carrying the weapon that would kill a god. The waiting was the hardest part. Elena sat on the bridge and watched her sensors, trying to track her people's progress through the interference of the creature's biology. Minutes passed like hours. Then Webb's voice came through the static. "Device placed, timer set. 60 seconds. We are coming back. 60 seconds. Elena started the engines, preparing for emergency departure. The ship groaned in protest. Damaged systems struggling to respond. 50 seconds. Webb and Foster appeared at the cargo bay door, running as fast as their heavy suits would allow. 40 seconds. They were inside. The airlock closed. Elena pushed the engines to maximum, driving the ship up through the creature's body toward the opening they had entered through. 30 seconds. The throat loomed ahead of them, a tunnel of muscle and membrane. The teeth appeared in the distance, gates to freedom. 20 seconds. Korvax felt the ship moving. He began to close his mouth, instinctively trying to trap the thing that had hurt him. 10 seconds. The Persistence shot through the narrowing gap, scraping against teeth that could crush battleships. The ship spun wildly, barely under control. 5 seconds. They were out. They were free. Behind them, the Dracorath's jaws snapped shut on empty space. 0. Inside Korvax the Eternal, the EMP device activated. The pulse was invisible, but devastating. It raced through the creature's nervous system at the speed of light, shutting down every electrical impulse it encountered. Brain function ceased. Heart stopped. Muscles went slack. Commander Yethis watched from his flagship as Korvax the Eternal, terror of 17 star systems, went still. The great dragon drifted lifelessly, its eyes dark, its body cold. For the first time in 6,000 years, a Dracarys had died. The 11 remaining dragons halted their advance. They had never seen one of their own killed before. They had believed themselves immortal, untouchable, beyond the reach of any lesser creature. Now they watched as a tiny ship emerged from the corpse of their leader. A tiny ship crewed by tiny beings who had refused to accept the impossible. Captain Elena Vasquez opened a communication channel to the surviving Dracarys. She was exhausted. She was wounded. She had lost most of her crew. But her voice was steady. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human vessel Persistence. Cathini Prime is under our protection. Leave this system now, or more of you will die." The dragons did not respond. But slowly, one by one, they turned away. They flew back into the darkness between stars, leaving the planet and its people safe. On the compact flagship, Commander Yethis stared at his view screen in disbelief. He had witnessed the impossible. He had seen humans do what no other species had ever done. In the years that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. Species that had feared the Dracarys for millennia began to hope again. They whispered about the humans, about their strange courage, about their refusal to accept defeat. The Dracarys still roamed the stars. They were still powerful and dangerous. But now they knew something they had never known before. They knew that size and strength were not everything. They knew that sometimes the smallest creatures could be the most deadly. And deep in their ancient minds, they remembered the name of the ship that had killed their leader. Persistence. A human word for a human quality that the dragons had finally learned to respect. They had learned that humans did not give up. Humans did not stop. When humans decided that something needed to die, they found a way to kill it. Even if it was a dragon. Even if it was a god.